This isn't really as big as what some of the other stories, but I thought this was worth sharing. Also shit formatting cause I wrote this on mobile. I survived a car crash a few years back. My father, my sister and I were in the car at the time. My dad was driving and was going too fast. He was behind another car which had just stopped, so he chose to turn up onto the curb in the moment as we were crashing. It was almost like a blur, but it only lasted maybe a second or two before finally returning to normal, for lack of a better word. Once the blur was over, I could see clearly what happened. The car had flipped over. Thankfully, we were able to get out with the assistance of some nearby drivers, which I can't begin to describe how grateful I'm for them helping out. An ambulance showed up shortly after. Luckily we were all fine, but I had this vehicle phobia for around a year after it happened. I refused to be a passenger in any vehicle, whether it be a car, a motorcycle or even a bus, but I slowly became more lenient towards the idea, and I'm now completely over it. TL. Doctor, I was in a car crash. Everyone was okay after crash. Had a vehicle phobia for a year, but I'm now over it. I was at a spa with my family and my dad's friends, family, and apparently the spa was more known for the swimming pools they had. I recall seeing two pools, the lazy river, which was for kids, and the deeper area, which was for adults. Well, me being the stupid 8 to 9-year-old I was, I went into the deep side. Now understand that I'm considered to be short for my age. At that point in my life people assumed I was in kindergarten or first grade. So not only was I a child in the adult section, I was a short child. I managed to get out, though my eyes were closed. When I reached the surface, I was crying because a lot of water had entered my nostrils and mouth. As I was panicking, I desperately searched around to see if I could feel a towel. I did, and I wiped my eyes. I went running to my dad to tell him what had happened, but he shrugged it off. Nobody even knows that I could have died. The adults swimming in that section didn't even try and rescue me. Was on a rafting trip down the New River in WV with my wife and my brother-in-law and a family friend. We dumped it at the top of a rapid called Upper Railroad with the river running at 3 feet. There's 2 major holes in that rapid in that flow rate. We high-sided in the first one and couldn't dig out, so the crew went for a swim. I got trapped under the boat, so I was a little delayed getting to the surface. No big deal, I think. But the delay cost me. By the time I hit the surface and started making for the safe channel, I was right on top of the second hole and went right in. Even with the PFD I was under for a solid minute getting bounced off boulders and turned around like I was in Satan's washing machine. It felt like an eternity, and I remember thinking, I'm going to fucking drown. I popped back up way downriver and was the last one to get pulled out by another crew. Scariest fucking ride I've ever had, bar none. I accidentally hung myself on a DIY as a toddler. My grandfather built a fence at the top of the stairs for safety, but instead of swinging back into the hallway like a normal person, it swung out over the stairs. So apparently there was a hole in it. Not sure if it was built with space between the boards, or if it was broken, or what, and my mom and I were home alone. I wanted to go upstairs and my 4-year-old brain decided, since I can't open the gate, I'll just have to go through it. I got my head stuck in the gate. I tried to pull it out. I somehow managed to pull it open instead. So I'm now stuck with my neck in a wooden hole, hanging over a stairwell without anything to stand on, screaming at the top of my lungs. My mom comes running and tries to pull me out. She can't get me out and has to lube my neck up with butter before she can finally pull me out. And the first thing she says when everyone gets home, take that F***ing gate down. I'm disabled. But like, I was disabled before too. No, there wasn't any permanent damage, but it was scary. Me and my family were fishing at a river. River had crocodiles, and I was using a cast net. Me and my brother were trying to catch this jellyfish in the cast net rope, not the net part, the part you hold, wrapped around my leg, and pulled me in. I couldn't swim at the time. I was under for like 2 minutes getting small gasp of air, and I felt something swim under my foot. So I accepted my fate. My brother was the only person who saw me fall in, and he was half underwater pulling me up, and he saved my life and I cried for the rest of the day thanking my brother. Survived one of the world's most painful venomous stings. Lifelong dream was to dive the Great Barrier Reef. Last year I finally had the time and money to go. Stayed on a liveaboard 60 kilometers off of Cairns. I went in April at the end of jellyfish season and wore a stinger suit, but at the end of a dive as I was climbing up the ladder to the boat, a wave washed a jellyfish onto my face, specifically the gap between the mask and the stinger suit hood. I didn't really notice besides what felt like a bee sting on my cheek, but my diving instructor noticed it and knocked it into the water. Based off their description, it was an irukandji, a very small box jellyfish. Straight away my back started feeling very stiff and tense, which grew over the next hour until it felt like the muscles in my torso were trying to crush me. At the same time I felt very sick, like how I imagine getting an allergic reaction feels. Threw up and couldn't walk. As we were so far from land, the crew wanted to call a helicopter from the mainland for me, but they decided the boat wasn't big enough and so had to drive it back to land, which took 3 hours. For the first 2 hours I was just writhing on the bed they found for me, with oxygen and ibuprofen to keep me ticking over, until a paramedic team speedboated out to meet us and gave me some stronger stuff intravenously. I ended up in hospital for 4 days while they tried to work out if my blood pressure had gone high enough to damage my circulatory system, but the pain was gone within 2 days and there were no lasting consequences. Oddly though, the sting is neurotoxic and made me forget most of the ordeal once I got to hospital, with it taking a few days to remember what the experience was like. It also made me feel very vulnerable and mortal, and very upsettable about trivial things, i.e. almost crying over the food being shit, though I hadn't cried for years beforehand. Unsure if that was the venom or just a side effect of being in A&E. Was mountain biking with a youth group, about 30 of us, and the trail was much more dangerous than the guides claimed. Not me, but I was one of 2 people who saw this girl lose control and go right over the edge of the hill/cliff thing. In that moment I thought to myself, she's gonna die. I pray that I never accidentally say this to her face. I yelled for the guides, since I was the only one who saw this other than the biker behind me, and I was near the front with the guides. So we got over there, and the girl landed on this platform, only cutting her hand on a barbed wire. If it wasn't for that platform, it was pretty much a semi-steep, at least 50-foot drop into the valley. I pretty much survived nearly falling off a roller coaster. Here's how it happened. I was 4, my sis and my mother, who is our hero. We got onto this ride. Apparently you spin around whilst moving. My age will be important for the story. We were also protected by large holders that prevent people falling off or slipping. When the ride started, I started kind of slipping. My mother, noticing I'm slipping, takes action and grabs my hand tightly. And here comes the scariest part. I immediately slipped off the holder and was near to the edge of the roller coaster. I was screaming and crying at the same time. When the ride stopped, my mother gave the ride operator a good old scold. Moral of the story: don't watch children fall off roller coasters. I was at a wedding on a private island for some close friends. After the ceremony we all went back to our cabins to get ready for the reception. Some friends of mine, their door lock broke and they were stuck inside. So me being Mr. Fix-It for everybody, I come to the rescue. Side note: there was no cell service on the island, so we couldn't call for help. I go up to the 3rd floor, where they are staying. Try a few things to get the door open, with no luck. So I decide maybe it would be easier if I was inside. I decided to climb over the balcony railing and shimmy over a longer railing to get into a sliding glass door. It was maybe 10 feet, no big deal. So I get to the sliding glass door opening, go to swing my leg inside. Then next thing I know, I hurt all over and am in pitch black. Some friends who saw me fall come searching for me with flashlights. After they get me up and out of the reeds I had fallen into, we get into a cabin and there are lots of "oh shits" and "are you okay?" Long story short, I broke my left elbow and the joint, requiring 9 hours of surgery. Tore my left ACL/meniscus. Broke 5 bones in my left foot, 3 in my right, and herniated 3 discs in my back. On the bright side, when I fell, my buddy kicked the door and got it open. So all in all, it's a win. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more daily 6 PM Reddit uploads.